These answer choices also don't quite fit the categories that we're used to. We have in addition, which is basically and, on the contrary is more like but. In other words, it's kind of like a summary choice. Maybe it's like a little bit like for example, and then today is just kind of its own thing, right? That involves the idea of time. So let's take a look though. We should be able to figure this out even through our own dumb summaries or just understanding what's going on. As a young historian in the 1950s, Alexa Naff began interviewing fellow Arab American immigrants about their experiences straddling two cultures. Over the next few decades, Naff conducted more than 450 such interviews, also known as oral histories. She collected photographs and other artifacts that represented her subjects' experiences. Okay, so she's interviewing them, she's collecting stuff. Just seems like a continuation of what's going on. I don't think I want to say it's on the contrary, right? This seems to just be like different ways of getting information about these people, so I don't understand why that would be a contrast. It's also not today. Now, it's conceivable that she could still be doing this today, but they're not making it clear that that's what's going on, right? It does talk about the 1950s, but to me, the idea is that like she's been doing this whole thing for a very long time, right? She started in the 1950s, it continued over the next few decades, but at no point are they trying to shift and say she didn't used to collect photographs, but today she does. So I think some of you might pick D because there are other elements of time in this passage, but we would really need something within that particular sentence or maybe the sentence before to show almost a contrast, basically, a contrast between the past and today. Just throwing a today in there is random. We just don't have evidence of that. So I do think that's a little bit of a trap answer, but hopefully you sense what I sense, that there just isn't anything pushing us in that direction, at least in the immediate area of the blank. In other words is just a way of summarizing something. So take it literally, right? In other words means we're taking what we just said and we're putting it in other words. Now, this is not the same thing, right? She's asking them questions. She's interviewing them. That's an oral history. She's talking with them. Collecting photographs is different. That's a different kind of thing. So it's not in other words. They both have the same purpose, which is trying to understand these people's lives, but that's too far removed. In other words is a very literal transition phrase. It means we're going to take what we just said and we're going to just say it in different words, but the meaning is exactly the same. That's not the case here. And so in addition ends up being right. This is not an answer choice I pick very often on these SATs because typically there's something better. But in addition is one of those transitions that we usually pick when nothing else works. It's kind of a process of elimination one because it's not really a transition at all, right? It's just telling us that we've moved on to another point. And that's exactly what this is. There's 2 points being made. She interviews people and she collects photographs. And so, is that really a transition? No, it's just a way of kind of moving on to the next thing without really adding much meaning to it. So it ends up being right because everything else was provably wrong. But again, I think some of you might want to pick D here or maybe something else just because you're like aware that in addition is not really a good transition. In real life, there's no reason we would need to say that here. We could just not have a transition at all. And so that's why it's usually a process of elimination answer, is there won't be that clear pull that it's correct. We just get it because everything else is wrong. So just do your best to understand all the other transitions. And then if you need to pick something like this, don't hesitate. If it's all that's left, pick it and move on.